Good morning and happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous day already. If you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, an activewear fanatic, a small business owner, studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, a runner, a jazzerciser, a dancer, all kinds of things I do to stay active and keep my wellness in balance, in check, if you will. And I started, if you're just stumbling on my page, I started Wellness Wednesday because I've been in a lifelong battle with anxiety and depression. I consider myself to be in recovery now, but I don't think that I would be if I hadn't shared information and if others hadn't shared information with me, which is super important because sometimes we can hear the same thing over and over and over again, and it takes the right person to say it or the right moment for our brain to receive it before it all clicks in place. So I started Wellness Wednesday in the interest of sharing my experiences in hopes that you will interact with me and share your own tips for wellness. And of course, wellness is a broad topic, so we cover a lot of different things. Sometimes we dig really hard into mindset, and other times we cover things kind of on a surface level for information. But if you're here, let me know you're here. Sometimes Facebook doesn't show me all of the things. So if I don't see it or I don't respond, just know that I will afterwards, and don't hesitate to ask questions or shoot me a message if you have a topic that you'd like to see me cover in the future. I do love to learn. I'd be happy to research it, see if I can work it in. We just try to stay away from politics and negativity, which is not always easy because sometimes it does pertain to our wellness, right? So again, if you're here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, still feel free to drop a question or a comment to let me know you received it. And again, if you have any questions or want to see any of the links that I used to help with my research, anything like that, please let me know. Now, last week we talked about the big M, which was menopause. I hope you enjoyed it, but if you missed it, then let me know and I'll be happy to either tag you in that video or drop the video link in the comments. Also, you can always go look at previous Wellness Wednesday videos on my Facebook page. All you have to do is go to the videos tab and scroll through. And this is episode 86, so there will be 85 other ones besides today's for a little immersion for you. So, and most of the time the topic is in the description, so you can click on it, see if it's a topic you want to hear about it, and then go on from there. So, okay, so again, last week's discussion was menopause. It can have a major effect on our wellness. I encourage the guys to stick around for that because even though guys don't really experience menopause, you can actually get a lot of insight on what's going on with your lady or the lady in your life if you have some information about it. But today, we're going to talk about service. We're going to talk about volunteering or giving back, whatever you want to call it, and how it relates to wellness. Whether you're a seasoned volunteer or someone thinking about getting involved for the first time, volunteering, giving back, whatever is an amazing way to not only help others, but sometimes to help yourself too. And I've discussed that in previous Wellness Wednesdays, because a lot of times the big thing is it takes the focus off of us. Good morning, Miss Carla. So, a couple of quotes for you that I'm sure you've heard before, but again, sometimes we have to hear them over and over again. So my volunteering actually started with a soccer club. But let me just talk about these quotes. This one in particular, my volunteering started with a soccer club because, my daughter was playing soccer. And so that was years ago, but I really didn't understand the importance of volunteering until I moved up in my career to the highest level that I could go as executive officer. And one of the things that we talked about frequently was Theodore Roosevelt's quote that every man, this is an abbreviated version, every man owes a part of his time and money to the business or industry in which he is engaged. No man has the moral right to withhold his support from an industry that is striving to improve the conditions within his sphere. Now, this is old, it's very patriarchal based, but there's still a good message there, which is that it's always a good idea to give back to the industry that supports you. So that's where a lot of volunteering often comes into play, is in not-for-profits and nonprofits and organizations that are business friendly or specific to a cause. Like, your local builders association if you're in the building and trades, or your local chamber if you're in general business. Or in my case, I'm studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I understand the importance of volunteering. And there's so much that NAMI Citrus, which is a local arm of the grassroots organization, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, that there's lots of opportunities to volunteer for, and there's so much more, but we won't dig into that too much right now. A couple of other great quotes I found. Audrey Hepburn said, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and one for helping others, which is fabulous. And I completely agree. And then Gandhi said, so you can see that this applies across the board, not just in business, but in personal lives, whatever. Good morning, Stacy. I don't see your name, but I see your little face bubble. Gandhi said the best way to lose yourself or to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So we can go on all day. There's lots and lots and lots of quotes. But let's get to the nitty gritty. My volunteering started with the soccer club, and it was because my daughter was involved, and I was standing watching my daughter's practice because I was never one to just drop my daughter and go away during practice. So I happened to be the only parent standing there watching practice one day, and the coach walked up to me and said, well, since you're the only parent here that hangs out, would you like to be the team mom? And I had no idea what that entailed, didn't know anything about it. I mean, I had been part of Girl Scouts. I had some exposure to volunteering, but not really on a personal level. Good morning, Miss Marie. I hope you're having a fabulous day. So this coach walked up to me and said, since you're the only parent standing here, how would you like to be the team mom? Because you're the only one that regularly hangs out. And I said, if you tell me what to do, sure. So that was my first taste of volunteering. But in the process of volunteering with the soccer club, I grew frustrated with a situation regarding t-shirts. And when I approached the people in charge to express my frustration. Now, mind you, I've never been a confrontational person. I don't walk up to people and yell. I just walked up to ask some questions and to, be like, I don't understand why this is working this way and why that's working that way. They told me something very, very important. And I think that gentleman has passed away, but the gentleman that said this to me, good morning, Miss Shelley, what he said to me stuck with me for years and years and years. And I've applied it to many areas of my life, which is this. He said, if you think you can do it better, he said, we're going to need somebody to handle them for next year because this is that person's last year. And this was like t-shirts for the entire league, club t-shirts for the entire league. And they, for each team, they involved the list of players. So they were specific to each team. And it wasn't an easy process by any means. But what they said to me was, and what this gentleman said to me, and it was Ray Wells, and I believe he's passed away since then, said to me, if you're going to bring a problem to the table, and this is a paraphrase, this might not be his exact verbatim, but it's close. If you're going to bring a problem to the table, you should also bring a solution. And that really, really hit home with me. So I've kept that in mind all of my life. And if I approach a business or a organization about an issue, then I usually try to bring a solution with it. And I understand that in order to do that, sometimes I have to be part of that solution. I have to be willing to give if I'm gonna fuss, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it. So that's how I got started into volunteering. And then, like I said, as I moved up in my career, I began to understand I was managing a not-for-profit organization that was volunteer-based. So I began to truly understand what volunteering looked like on so many different levels and how it could benefit business and how it could benefit the community and how it could benefit individuals. So let's go ahead and dig in. So what's in it for you? You might be listening to me thinking, well, this is great and this sounds great, but what am I going to get out of it? And that's typically, let's face it. If we were all to be honest, we start volunteering because someone tells us that's what we should do, or because we feel like that's what we should do, but we don't understand why. And we may not necessarily have a direction. We just do it because that's what somebody has told us that we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to give back to our community. So What is in it for you? Well, for first of all, your mental and emotional health. And that's what this is about, right? Is wellness. Volunteering has been shown to reduce stress. And I've talked about this before, to reduce stress, to combat depression, and provide a sense of purpose. When you help others, your brain releases dopamine, which makes you feel happier and more fulfilled. Volunteering takes your focus off of you and your problems. Now, I'm a huge Golden Girls fan, so what comes to mind immediately is the girls going and serving at a homeless shelter at Christmas when they were all wound up about not being able to make it where they wanted to go for Christmas. And a couple other episodes of Golden Girls, like when they hit $10,000 on a scratch off or some kind of lottery ticket, and it got put in the pocket of a jacket that accidentally got donated. And what ensued was a chase for this jacket. And when they found it in a homeless shelter after spending all night there talking to individuals in the shelter, not disclosing why we were there. And I'm going to start crying because every time I see this episode, and I've seen it about 8 billion times, it still just gets me right here. At the end of that episode, they found the ticket. They're getting ready to walk out, but they're just kind of standing there looking at each other. And the minister or pastor who's in charge of this homeless shelter unlocks the door and comes in to start turning on lights and waking everybody up. And they just kind of nod at each other and they hand him the ticket. So they've gone through all this rigmarole for 12 or 14 hours, chasing down this jacket that's got the ticket in the pocket and spending time getting to know people in the homeless shelter. And they ultimately decide there's a better place for that money than with them. So, but we'll get into that in a minute. That's a little bit less about volunteering and a little bit more about donating, but it's still about giving back. So again, volunteering takes your focus off of you and your problems, and giving back in general. And the reason is because you're now focused on somebody else, and that somebody else may or may not have a bigger problem or a worse problem than you, but it's really not about that. It's a different problem. It allows you to focus on somebody else and feel empathy for somebody else. It takes your mind off your own stuff. And very often, because it forces you to step outside of your own head, your issues, whatever they are, look a little bit different when you get back inside your own head, right? So that's some of what it can do for your mental and emotional health. For your physical health, studies have shown that volunteers have lower blood pressure, also affects your mental and emotional well-being. Longer lifespans, because participating in regular service activities keeps you active and engaged, and often gets you out of the house too, so it reduces loneliness. Now, I know a person who was very, very much into volunteering, and they were also still working a full-time job, but they had a neurological disorder, and so they started to develop some issues with mobility and speech and etc. But I literally watched a very distinct, when their company let them go, phased them out, put them into a retirement plan, whatever happened there. When that person stopped leaving the house to go to work, I saw a very significant and very quick decline in that individual's ability to speak and ability to move. And I'm absolutely 100% convinced it's because they no longer had a purpose in getting out of the house, moving around, and doing for others, doing for themselves. And we see that happen a lot, especially with elderly individuals. They retire if they don't stay engaged, if they just sit around all day, watch TV, even if they're not tinkering around the house, we can often see a rapid decline at that point. And that's why volunteering, getting out there and engaging can be so beneficial for our physical health. And if our physical health is better, then our mental and emotional well-being is better also. There's also social business benefits, obviously. Volunteering helps you to build a community and become engaged in your community. At one point in time, if you've followed me regularly, you know that at one point in time, I wanted nothing more than to leave my community that I'm in and get out, because I just thought that life would be better. I had serious destination preoccupation, and I was convinced that my life would be better anywhere but here. I even had a Pinterest board called Anywhere But Here. And I felt trapped in my life. I felt like nothing was good for me here. And a lot of that was mindset, and a lot of that was part of my anxiety and depression. But when I started becoming engaged in my community, I started to see the community. That was part of my mindset change. And I started to see the community for what it really was, and the beauty and amazingness that it had to offer, and the love that it had to offer, instead of just a place where I felt trapped. And that made a huge difference. So when you volunteer, you become engaged in your community. It helps build community. My notes say a community, but really community is a feeling. It's a feeling, and it's a cohesiveness, and it's a network. And let me tell you something, the community that I live in is amazing, and it is cohesive, and it is a network. It is definitely its own community animal. So it's not just a community. It is community. So when you do that, you meet like-minded people, you form new friendships, you strengthen existing relationships. And again, it reduces loneliness. It gets you out of the house. It gets you engaged. It's a fantastic way to expand your social network and find support. I have learned as much from the organizations that I have volunteered for as I have from my career, as I have from my school. And in fact, it's just, you don't really know until you get to experience it. A long time ago in my area, there was an organization that helped to kind of repair substandard housing that fell in between the cracks of new housing assistance and existing housing existence. And some of it was really ugly, but there was nothing that could describe the feeling you got at the end of the day when you helped someone clear out their house or trim the trees away or clean their gutters. Somebody that was physically unable to do it, that was on a fixed income, that couldn't do it couldn't really pay somebody. And those things are just amazing, and they can make a huge difference. So those are some of the social, physical, mental, and emotional. All of that ties in together. Skill development, career benefits. Believe it or not, there's a lot to be had from volunteering in that department. Serving others also allows you to develop new skills and gain valuable experience. Whether it's in leadership, communication, or problem solving, those skills can be incredibly beneficial in your professional life, or when you're re-entering the workforce if you haven't been for a while. For a while there, especially after the downturn, which I guess we call the Great Recession now, sometimes whether or not somebody got hired for a job was determined by how long they were out of work and what they did with that time. Employers were more willing to employ someone who maybe was out of work, but was volunteering on a regular basis for someone versus just sitting at home. Those little nuances sometimes made a huge difference in terms of whether or not somebody got hired, especially when employers were flooded with qualified applicants and no way to really discern who was the best outside of basic interviews and skills. And that's actually one of the things that brought up this topic for this week for me. I find inspiration in all kinds of places, and sometimes God just kind of goes, hey, I want you to talk about this. Smacks me in the head, if you will. And in this case, I have been in a career counseling course this term, and it's been a struggle for me, because I've never looked at anything through a career counseling lens. But we had a list of clients we had to choose from, and one particular client that we had a discussion about was a fifth grader. And I'm thinking, I gotta be honest with you, I'm thinking to myself, what fifth grader needs career counseling? Let them be a kid. Leave them alone. If they have interests, they want to be a doctor, they want to be a vet, they want to be a firefighter, let them check into that. But why are we talking about career counseling for a fifth grader? And then in the process of reading discussion posts and creating my own discussion posts and reading the bio on this client, I realized that at fifth grade, volunteering is a fabulous way to start learning about different careers. And in the case of this client, and they're all made up. In the case of this client, he was a fifth grader who felt pressure to become a doctor because his parents were doctors and everybody thought that was really cool. So he really didn't have exposure to any other type of career. And his parents weren't pressuring him to become a doctor. The pressure he was putting was all on himself, which is hard to fathom for a fifth grader, right? So my idea was that he needed to become engaged in volunteering in some form or fashion, whether it was to join scouting, so that he could be exposed to all kinds of different vocations through badge work and volunteering. That he needed to become involved in volunteering because in that way he could get exposed to different types of vocations and exposed to different people who he could learn from. Kind of like early learning networking, if you will. So you really can develop a lot of skills and a lot of leadership and communication skills, problem solving skills, all of this. And especially for children, and we're going to talk about children a little bit more in a minute. I'm trying to watch my time because I know your time is valuable. It can really be beneficial for people, like I said, re-entering the workforce. If you've done extensive volunteer work, that's worth putting on your resume. Resumes don't look like they used to. You can put your volunteer positions on a resume, especially if they pertain to the job you're applying for. So there's a lot to be had there as far as skill development and career benefits. And then, of course, personal growth and fulfillment, which again circles back around to all of the things we already discussed, the social, the mental and emotional health, the career benefits. Volunteering fosters personal growth. And I will 100% agree with that. Because as I said, I have learned as much, including about myself, from volunteering as I have from any of my careers, my schooling, anything. It fosters personal growth. It challenges you to step out of your comfort zone. You guys know what I say. It's not my own quote. It's pretty cliche, but it's true. Nothing good ever grows from a comfort zone. So it helps you step outside of your comfort zone, teaches you empathy, and provides a deep sense of satisfaction in knowing that you're making a difference. And you're probably like, okay, Donna, but you started with, we usually just start volunteering because somebody tells us that's what we need to do, or we all of a sudden decide that's what we need to do. And that is true. But as you begin volunteering and you start getting engaged, you will find a niche. You will find a place where your strengths are advantageous and where you can really make a difference. It just takes a little time sometimes. It's just like a job. It's just like a career. It's just like a doctor or a counselor. Sometimes it takes a little bit to find your right fit. And sometimes you need a second opinion. All right, so the benefits to those you're serving. So now you know what's in it for you. What's in it for the others? You'd think this would be pretty obvious, right? But there might be a couple things here that you didn't think about. Impact on the community. Your efforts can have a ripple effect on the community. And by volunteering, you're contributing to a more to strength and resilience within that community, whether it's through feeding the hungry, tutoring students, building houses with habitat, or cleaning up local parks and waters, or any of the things that could fall under this umbrella. And there's a lot, y'all. You're changing lives. The people you help are directly impacted in some way. You may not always see it. And I'm of the belief now, when I first started, I wanted to see the results of what I was doing. As I grew, I understood that I might not always get to see the impact. But if I do the thing, I know that God's working with that and he's doing something with it. Sometimes I get to see it. Sometimes I don't. And that's okay, because I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I want to, and because it makes me feel better, and because that's what I truly feel called to do. So you're changing lives. You're directly impacting people. And for instance, if part of your give back is that you're mentoring a young person, you could be changing the trajectory of their life. And providing companionship to the elderly can significantly improve the quality of theirs. So there's a lot of impact that you can make just by some very simple engagement in your community. You can build stronger connections within the community. Volunteering service brings people together. It bridges gaps and it promotes understanding and cooperation among diverse groups. And what comes to mind when I think about this is Mr. Rogers saying, look for the helpers. When you have strong community, oftentimes where you see the most community is when disaster strikes. When something tragic has happened, a storm, a death of somebody well-known in the community, anything like that, a nasty accident. That's often where you see community the most. But why does it take a tragedy to be able to see that? Why is it not something we should see every day? And the truth is it's probably happening every day, but we have to get out there and get engaged so we can check it out, so that we can feel it, so that we can see it. So look for the helpers. Be a helper. There's always helpers. In any situation, there's always helpers. And I love the idea of that at some point, somebody is going to see my face and they're going to be like, she was a helper. I don't even have to know about it. I don't. See, this is such a touchy subject. You're also addressing specific needs for others. Your service addresses immediate needs, whether it's disaster relief, homelessness, hunger, child development, or any number of things. By volunteering, you're directly contributing to solving critical issues in society, in your community. And as the saying goes, many hands make light work. And yes, there are. Marie, you're so correct. And you are so engaged in the community yourself. And I'm so excited that you're here, that you're watching, you're listening and sharing that, because I see how engaged you are all the time. Good morning, Victoria. So I had a thought there and I lost it. Many hands make light work. Okay. Well, anyway, addressing specific needs. All right. We'll just move on. And if I think of it, I'll spit it out, because you guys know I'm like a squirrel. All right. So here's the final part of this. Include the kids, especially since school just got out, which again, the timing of all this was perfect. Kids can learn role modeling and values that when you are volunteering, when you are engaging in your community, you are setting an example. When children see adults volunteering, they want to know why, they want to know what, they want to know where, they want to understand. And you would be surprised, like my 7-year-old grandson, he understands, I think, more than I do sometimes. They are very, very smart. They just have a different perspective. So when they ask why, you answer those questions. They learn kindness. They learn responsibility. You're setting a powerful example. But when you're volunteering, and this can be difficult because sometimes volunteering gets a little trying in of itself. Sometimes it can involve more drama and more politics than your job, right? And if that's the case, you may need to reevaluate where you're volunteering. But don't complain about volunteering in front of your children, because then while you're trying to send them a message of example, you're sending them a whole different message if all they see is when you come back from volunteering or while you're volunteering, you're complaining about why this person isn't doing this or that person isn't doing that, or why you ended up being the only one showing up. And you're basically canceling out whatever message you're trying to send them when you are complaining about your volunteer work in front of them. So involve them, but make sure you're involving them with the right attitude and that you're exempling the right attitude. I know a lot of people, and I've even been guilty about this myself, we get a little burnt out. Maybe sometimes where we're volunteering isn't the right fit. So we're showing up, but we're flapping our gator, we're complaining, we're fussing, we're analyzing everything. If that's the case, you're probably doing more harm than good at that point. And maybe it's time to find a different place to volunteer or take a break, or, just get a little bit of a brain reset, if you will. For kids, though, children who observe or even participate with you are more likely to develop empathy and compassion. They learn the importance of helping others and are more likely to engage in helpful behavior themselves. And that's across the board. So if they're learning to be helpful, if they're learning the mentality of giving more specifically without receiving, then they're even more likely to help you out around the house without expecting money or an allowance or whatever, without that entitlement. They are learning to give back. They are learning that sometimes you just do things because that's what needs to be done. And it doesn't necessarily involve a payoff in any way. You do it just because that's what needs to be done and it's the right thing to do. And 99.9% of the time, you are going to feel fabulous for doing it. You're going to get a good feeling about it. So they learn that they can make a difference. They learn the importance of helping others, and they're more likely to engage in that behavior while they're doing it and going forward. You're encouraging community involvement. Again, some of this sounds a little repetitive, but watching adults volunteer encourages the kids to get involved in their communities. They learn that they can make a difference, which empowers them. What child can't use empowerment? Come on, we're all adults here. We all eat up whatever empowerment we can get. So what child can't benefit from some seriously strong empowerment? And then educational and social skills benefits. This is key, especially when we have so many kids that do not have basic soft skills. They're coming into the workforce, they're coming out of school, and they don't have basic soft skills. Even though community hours are required for scholarships, how many kids are actually getting those? How many kids are getting those community service hours in? I think some community service hours are required for graduation, but how those community service hours are handled is a whole other conversation for another day and not for Wellness Wednesday. Children benefit educationally and socially from volunteering. That's why sometimes it's a requirement for graduation, why sometimes it's a requirement for scholarships, because colleges, schools, they see the importance of the bigger picture, and having that well-rounded personality where you understand the benefit of service. You get out there, you get physically active. It's not all, even though it seems like it, it's really not all about academics. They develop better communication and teamwork skills, which is huge going forward. And they're often more engaged in school and community activities when they get older. So where do we do this? Where do we volunteer? Where do we start? Well, there's opportunities everywhere. There's opportunities within your faith-based organizations, churches, etc. Within your schools. There's animal shelters. Almost every county has an animal shelter, at least one that you can volunteer at. Youth sports. There's lots of opportunity with youth sports. Concession stands, team shirts, team moms, all kinds of opportunities within youth sports. And that just puts you in a position to spend more time with your child if you have a child in youth sports. Support groups like the ones that NAMI offers, like here locally, there's also Club Recovery, who does a lot of the 12-step programs. If you're in recovery from a mental health illness, from substance abuse, you can give back by participating in support groups and helping people to take that next step, and to learn from you. Food banks, homeless shelters, senior centers, and nursing homes, special needs organizations, conservation organizations. There's opportunities to volunteer online. I learned, I don't remember the name of it now, but there was a place called Volunteer Match or something that you could sign up for online. And you might be, like, one of my volunteer jobs is to do a little bit of social media work for a nonprofit. Because I don't have to leave home. I can work that into the cracks of my day. And it's one of my strengths. Nursing home, special needs organizations. The possibilities really are endless. For example, here locally, first of all, if you're in Citrus County, if you're watching this and you're in Citrus County, our county has a Nature Coast Volunteer Center. It's actually listed on their site. You don't think it's actually part of the county, but it is included in their website. And it's a volunteer hub for the county, if you will. Also, I talked about the Volunteer Match online. I also, just out of curiosity, did a quick places to volunteer near me and came up with organizations I hadn't even heard of. Star Spangled Heroes, Citrus Aid, which is a cancer foundation. Of course, Nature Coast Volunteer Center came right up. We have a couple of different community food banks. There's so many opportunities. So you could start by posting on Facebook and saying, hey, I want to volunteer in my area, local friends, where's a good place to start? There's so many opportunities. It's just a matter of knowing where to start. You want to volunteer for mental health? Start with NAMI. If you're not local, you can go to NAMI.org and put in your zip code and find the local affiliate near you and reach out to them. If you're in building and trades and that's where your strength is, or you're retired from building and trades, you can reach out to your local home builders association or contractors association and see what they need help with, how you can volunteer there. If you like fishing, find a local fishing tournament. There's so many opportunities there. Boys and Girls Club may be looking for volunteers occasionally. If you're good with kids, schools frequently need volunteers during the school year. Our local school district has a fundraising arm, which is the Citrus County Education Foundation. That's a place that you can volunteer for. Rotaries. The possibilities really are endless. Almost any nonprofit or not-for-profit organization has room or need for volunteers. So there's that. So remember also that you don't have to, it's absolutely right. If you volunteer in something you love, you will absolutely not be sorry. That's perfect, Victoria. Thank you so much for that reminder. And again, that's why I said sometimes it takes a little working out to find your niche, just like with anything else. But volunteering should be fun and it should be rewarding. And if you get to the point where volunteering is burning you out, it's stressing you out, then you either might be doing too much or you might be volunteering in the wrong place. And you might need to consider backing off a little bit. Good morning, Danielle. All right, so remember this, because I'm going to wrap this up now, because as usual, I'm running a little long. Imagine that. You don't have to have money to help. A lot of people, when they think about supporting nonprofits and not-for-profit organizations, they only think in terms of time that they don't have or money that they don't have. So there's a little saying that someone shared with me a long time ago. It's called time, talent, treasure. You don't have to have money. That's the treasure. If you don't have treasure, maybe you have time. If you don't have a lot of time, maybe you have talent. Like I said, like if you're good with social media, maybe you can work just a few hours a week from home, helping an organization increase their social media presence. Time, talent, treasure. Some people don't have a lot of time and they don't have a lot of treasure, but they're really good at bringing other supporters in. They're really good at nailing down sponsorships for events or whatever. That's the talent aspect. So whatever it is that you have, find a way to donate back. Whatever your reason for starting, get started, because I guarantee you, as you go on, your reasons for volunteering, for giving back, for service in general will change. And you will find that your mental and emotional and physical well-being will change as well. So, and that's one of the things I love about my business. Now, I don't have a lot of time. I'm spread pretty thin, but I still try to find time to give back here and there. I have a little bit of talent I use from time to time. And I'm very, very thankful for my online business, because my online business frequently gives me the funds to give a little treasure here and there that I wouldn't otherwise have. So very thankful for all those things. But I'm going to leave you with this quote. I hope you've enjoyed today. If you've enjoyed it, please share. Hopefully it will inspire you or someone else to get involved in your community in some way, form, or fashion. So I'm going to leave you with this. The purpose of life is to discover your gift. The meaning of life is to give it away. Now, there's some different schools of thought on who is actually responsible for that quote. So it's not mine, but it really, really resonates with me. Everybody's always asking what the meaning of life is, what the purpose of life is. The purpose of life is to discover your gift, and the meaning of life is to give it away. And a lot of times with volunteering, service, support of nonprofits, not-for-profits, community things, that is where we can give it away once we figure out what our gift is. And sometimes figuring that out is a little bit of trial and error. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it inspiring in some way, shape, or form, that you will pass it on to somebody else. Remember, you can share it. You can share it to somebody's messenger if you don't want to tag them, or share it to their page. You can share it to your own page. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And like I said, if you don't know where to start, Google, where can I volunteer near me? Places to volunteer near me. See what comes up. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you have a fabulous week. And most importantly, be well.